Yeah, thank you, Srin. Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for joining us for Automotive Axles Limited third quarter of FY21 earnings conference call. During this call, from the management side, we'll be hearing from Mr. Timaya, MD and CEO of Meritor India, and Mr. Kumaradevan, yes, Senior VP and Whole-Time Director, Automotive Axles, and Mr. Ranganathan, yes, CFO, Automotive Axles Limited. Now I would like to turn the call to Mr. Timaya for the opening remarks, followed by Q&A. Sir, you may begin now.
Good afternoon to all. First of all, welcome and thank you very much for taking time out in participating in our company's investor relationship call. So what I'll do is, as you know, in the end of the day, a lot of questions will come. I will try to answer those questions. And now I'll hand over the presentation portion to Kumar, who's Executive Director for Automotive Axles. And also we have Ranganathan, CFO of Automotive Axles. They will run through the presentation. Then I'll pitch in for the question and answer session, please. Over to Ranga.
Yes, Kumar, can you take the first two slides?
Yeah, okay. So good morning, everyone. This is Kumaradevan. So let me start the presentation with a snapshot of financial year 20. As you know, financial year 20, we had a revenue of 960 crores with an EBITDA of 101 crores, 10.5%, and PBT of 59.9. I think the other points like manufacturing locations, you all know we have 4 manufacturing locations. And about the company, it's a joint venture between Meritor and Kalyani, 35.5% each and public 29%. We are having workforce of about 2,000 plus, and all our customers include all major commercial vehicle players and also specialty and defense original equipment manufacturers. We continue to retain our number 1 position in axles, and we are number 2 in brakes. Going forward, with respect to the market, I think I may not repeat, I guess. I think all of you know the kind of diverse market that we are catering to. And our customers include all the major OEMs, both domestic as well as in the international market. Similarly, we have a very comprehensive product range, both in axles as well as in brakes. So we serve the product requirements starting from light up to the extra heavy vehicles in both MHCV as well as in LCV category. So with that introduction, I will request Ranga to carry this forward, covering the financial aspects, and then I'll come back on the other things later.
Yeah, good morning, good afternoon to all. As far as the financial performance Q3 is concerned, we did about 273 crores in the Q3 ended December. With this compared to the last year, same quarter is about 64% increase. As far as the EBITDA is concerned, last quarter we closed with 9.9%. More or less similar performance compared to the last year. The only point this time is about the steel price increase is probably a commodity price increase on all factors which is influencing the EBITDA margin as a percentage. And as far as PBT is concerned, we closed this quarter with 6.3% as compared to 4.1% last year same quarter. Overall, YTD is concerned, all of you know the first quarter was very bad, more or less wiped out. So the 9 months, we have finished with 486 crores, and which is relatively about 38% lower than the last year. As far as EBITDA is concerned, we are at 5.6% as compared to 10.9% last year. In terms of absolute values, we are, of course, less by about 59%. PBT is concerned, we are at minus 1.2 as compared to 6.9 last year. More or less, the last 2 quarters profits, they come closer to wipe up. Hopefully, the Q4 we will be turning positive with the PBT level. When it comes to the very high level performance, the revenue and EBITDA and PBT is already there in the previous slides. I'm not repeating again. So as I said, the sale is increased by 64%. So sale and revenue production run rate, basically, as you see the Q1 to Q2 is about 300%, and last quarter is about 80%, that is Q2 to Q3. We are expected to, based on the current estimates, we expected to improve this by 28% over Q3. So Q4 we are going to do 25% more compared to the Q3 is what basically the estimation at this moment of time. As far as other improvement point, as we always do, that is about our focus is continuously on the grow revenue. It's always there. We are working on it, and we are also seeing a quite positive movement from the OEMs. And our continuous focus on revenue improvement, cost reduction, and new product development, definitely working towards our strategy of Mission 25. That is really building in the improvement in the profitability. If you could compare the cost parameters compared to last year to this year, definitely you will see that a lot of good improvement is happening in both fixed and conversion costs, and also the metal cost level. The PBIT cost is more or less in control, so it is also giving good amount of leverage coming to PBT. That's probably you would have seen that the PBIT level, the substantial improvement in this quarter. So our focus continues to be on cost control and the process and productivity improvement that definitely drives both the top line and the bottom line. So with this brief highlights, I'll give it to Kumar once again to take a few of the slides.
Thanks, Ranga. So to summarize, I think our focus and key initiatives come under the three major pillars. One is to drive the business growth with various initiatives. Number two, cost reduction initiatives. Number three, to ensure a safe working place so that we can continue to operate efficiently and effectively. Under the first vertical, business growth strategy, we are working very closely with all our existing customers as well as few new opportunities to ensure new business wins that should be taking place. So that is one major sub-project that we are driving. Secondly, a number of new product development initiatives, new platforms as well as new variants are being worked on. And with those, we are gearing up internally to meet the various diverse customer requirements. We are also looking at very closely at the e-mobility business opportunities. We are working with customer as well as internally to get ready with the products and variants. Again, another in-house initiative is digitalization. Industry 4.0 is being driven intensely in all our shop floors, which will make our products a lot more reliable, a lot more efficient and effective in terms of meeting the customer requirements. Also, as you all know, we proactively created capacity, so we are working with the strategy of lead capacity in order to capture the market opportunities that is now happening going forward. Similarly, cost measures, I think we have talked a lot in the previous quarters also. We continue to drive all those cost reduction opportunities covering material costs, in-house manufacturing costs, overhead costs, etc. So this will be our continuous focus. We will drive all those sub-initiatives and sub-projects under various categories. The third one is, which is very important, the first and foremost basic requirement in terms of safe operating environment in all our manufacturing locations. COVID was a major challenge for many of us. We were very happy that we could successfully manage the situation, and all our manufacturing locations, ran even under COVID situation very effectively and efficiently, following all the safety norms, all the safety protocols, all the new norms what we have established. From management side, we provide a lot of other incremental infrastructure requirements to combat COVID situation. So with that, I think we have successfully come out of the issue and we are managing all our operations efficiently. So going forward, I think as we mentioned last time, Tanmaya explained in detail in the previous meeting, our growth is driven through our Mission 25 strategy. So we have 5 verticals under this Mission 25, growing revenues, enhancing profitability, new business wins through new products, etc., operation excellence, and customer value proposition. So all the 5 verticals are being driven with a number of sub-initiatives, and we have metrics and targets for each one of those initiatives for the next 3 to 4 years. all of those initiatives are going on track at this point of time, and we are confident that all these things will result in revenue growth, business growth, as well as enhancing the bottom line. So finally, I am also very happy to share with all of you very proudly that our MD, Mr. Timmayan Appanda, has been recognized by Economic Times Edge as one of the most promising business leaders of Asia for 2020. I think this is the recognition he got recently, about I think 2 months ago, and we are all very proud about it, and we are very proud to share that information with all of you here. So that's it from us from presentation point of view. I think we are now open for question and answers. Shailesh?
Certainly. Ladies and gentlemen, we will now begin the question and answer session. If you have a question, please press *1 on your phone and await your turn to ask the question when guided by me. If your question has been answered before your turn and you wish to withdraw your request, you may do so by pressing the *1 again. Our first question comes from the line of Mr. J. Kale. Please go ahead, sir, from Elara Capital.
Yeah, good afternoon, sir. Thanks for taking my question, and congratulations to Timmayan for winning the award. So my first question is regarding, your top line. I mean, you have consistently in the last couple of quarters outgrown the M&HCV production growth. I assume that would also be led by some of your new business wins, one of which could be slipper suspension. If we just talk a little bit about how much contribution you've seen, how are you seeing the new business wins, any incremental products that you've won, also in BS6, if you have substantially gained orders for some of these new components, which you had alluded in the last few calls.
Okay. Thank you very much. I think really appreciate the gesture and wishes. I think if you can see the way we look the market, this full year we are expecting the market to be down by around 27% compared to last year, which is the 7.5 ton and above commercial vehicle market. Even though you can see the Q1 and Q2 was almost like a wash. Little bit of recovery is happening in Q3, and we are seeing Q4 is looking better. So for around 20-25% degrowth still compared to the last year, and we are projecting our revenue will go down by around 10%, 12% level. If you see what we indicated in the last slide. That's what you are recognizing it. Maybe you wanted to know how are we going to do that. I think, if you really see our Mission 25 strategy, one of the key pillar is grow revenue. And we are doing a lot of things. Some of them are, already we are seeing a result, and that's why the top line is not eroding compared to the market. And some of them will come in the future, depending upon how the business case for each one of these new initiatives we are working on. That said, our major, where we were able to outgrow the market is coming from our improvement in our share of business with many customers, both from axle side and brake side. And also we have launched and in the process of launching new products in the market. Again, all related to axle at this point of time. That is also providing us a significant uptick in terms of our revenue growth. The new verticals, and some of them are also coming from the industrial and military applications. Unfortunately for you people, fortunately for us, we don't give the split up of where exactly the revenue is going to come from. I can only give the pointers from where these things are happening. Still, in terms of suspension, even though it is a big thing for us, we have not at seen a big uptick in suspension products. That is what going to happen in the coming quarters or coming years. Because of the the transition from BS4 to BS6, the OEMs want to stabilize the product first. Then suddenly the market has come back, and the OEMs are not able to deliver because of various reasons, the supply chain issues, the steel issue, etc. Any new thing which is going into the market has taken a little bit of backseat because the OEMs and all of the people are not able to manage. So the real growth from suspension perspective is going to come maybe next year.
Okay. Okay, sure. Sir, my second question is regarding the export opportunity. I mean, couple of quarters back you had mentioned that post the COVID, the pace of new order wins and exports could kind of take a pause, or there could be some relook at because the various plants of various companies globally are also operating at lower utilization, specifically for Meritor. And hence the sourcing from India could go on a little slowly as per what you all had earlier expected. Now with things largely settling down on the COVID front, how and demand bouncing back, how are you seeing the new orders from the export businesses, either from Meritor's global plants or from new customer wins? Like I think you had mentioned about Volvo Thailand. How are you seeing that ramping up? And if you could just speak a little more about any more business opportunities in export side that you've won in the recent quarter.
Yeah. No, I think you rightly mentioned we were a little bit.
Sorry to interrupt your line. This is conference operator. Hello. Is this Miss Jaya? Hello. Number 9008514184. Please unmute your line. Hello. Hello. Please help me with your name.
That has given us some good news for sure. Our skepticism is not there now. I think our export order board is increasing. That is also one of the reasons, again, we can't give you a split of how much we are doing domestic and export and how much is the growth is coming from export and domestic. We will not be able to give that much detail. But the export order board is also looking very positive.
Okay. And this is the last one. If you can speak a little bit about your new verticals, like say defense or highway, any traction that you're seeing post-COVID now, especially on the defense side? That would be my last question.
Yeah. The defense side, yes, there is a lot of traction, as you know, as we all see in the newspaper, and the government, what they're trying to do is, number one, they're trying to modernize the fleet, and also they're trying to upgrade the vehicle, which is a multi-axle vehicles. So I think there is a lot of tractions are happening, but as you know, the gestation period in the defense is very long. We are seeing the order board for defense is on an increasing trend, but still we are not seeing significant offtake or the manufacturing activity from our OEM perspective is happening. But I think the future looks good. There are a lot of multi-axle vehicles are under validation and testing, and as you can know, it takes a lot of time for the validation at the defense. So we are happy that that's one on the defense side is going to grow. And industrial, which is off-highway for us, that is one growth area we have identified, and we are going to that's develop products and also launch new products. If you really ask me, currently the revenue doesn't still incorporate a lot of new things from these vertical sets. This is probably will start kicking in from next fiscal year or maybe a year later on these new verticals. And also we are exploring, which again I can't tell you which vertical we are getting or trying to explore. We are exploring a lot of other products, which is not axle and brakes. We are again, last time also I told you that we are in the process of developing the business plan, business case, and only if it makes sense and if we can retain the profitability and also grow the revenue, then only we will launch those verticals. But we are in a continuous evaluation in a phase to see that what works and what doesn't work.
Sure. So I'll get back in the queue. I have a few more questions. Thanks and all the best.
Thank you, Mr. Kale. Our next question is from the line of Mr. Sunil Kothari from Unique Investments. Please go ahead, sir.
Thanks for opportunity, sir. Congratulations for getting this award, which you people really deserve. Sir, my question is just broadly, I wanted to understand the way you take efforts to reduce costs, improve your productivity, improve your processes, the way you do innovation. These cost benefits will remain with Automotive Axles, or because we have very strong customer, two mainly. One is Meritor and second is via Meritor, this Ashok Leyland. Those cost benefits we have to share with them. And if it is so, then how much benefits we are able to keep and how much we have to share? If you can broadly make us understand.
There are multiple type of cost reduction we are constituted in our company. Some are purely the productivity linked, which is optimization in the manufacturing setup, reduction of number of heads in terms of automation, etc. That is one kind of cost reduction activity we do, which is an ongoing basis kind of a cost reduction. The second is the sourcing kind of a cost reduction, which is trying to find out alternate source, work with our suppliers to reduce the cost for them, optimize for them, etc. The third is the design related cost reduction, which means we continuously upgrade our existing product into the new product, and our goal is to enhance the performance through the new product, reduce the weight, and reduce the cost. So some of them we retain ourselves. Some of them, like mainly are the product related one. It is also we want to make our OEM successful, our customer successful. So on the new product side, if there is a significant cost reduction is happening, we also like to pass on to the customer so that they also get the benefit of the new product activities, what we do. Otherwise, also, there will be no interest for them to validate and approve the new product. So we want to show them some interest so that they can approve the new product. So it is case to case basis. We decide how much we pass on, how much we retain, what we pass on and what we retain. But to summarize, there is a both variety. There are certain areas we pass on to the customer. There are certain areas we retain as part of our productivity improvement.
Okay. But sir, the way you are taking efforts, will it be reflected maybe over next 3-5 years in a respectable margin? Respectable means you are a technologically very superior company. If we take any other good engineering auto component company who is respectable this effort, their EBITDA margin is always between 15 to 20%. So is there our objective, our aim, our target, can we reach? I'm not asking you to confirm any numbers, but is there any upward possibility to get the benefits of all the efforts what you are taking?
I will not be able to tell you whether we'll get to 15% or not, but only pointer I can give you is, see last quarter Q3 for example, we are operating at around 200.
This is a conference operator. Would you please register your name? Hello. Hello. Hello.
Compared to what we used to do when we were doing say around 400 crores turnover. So from there, if you see that even though the capacity utilization or top line has deteriorated because of all these pandemic things, we were able to maintain the EBITDA. Now the question is when the market comes back and when we do probably 60, 70, 80% capacity utilization happen, will everything, absorption will come back and give us the benefit in the form of EBITDA? I would say not necessarily, because we also in that time we will starting investing into new things, new products and new activities. And then also the customers will also come back to us and asking for some reduction, etc. So, it's a combination of all these activities which will probably, little bit of put little constraint for us to show everything in the EBITDA. But one thing is we will continue to grow for sure. If the 300 crores goes to say 400 crores, if the market, because of market and because of our penetration, etc., definitely our EBITDA growth will be more than the revenue growth.
True. So that is very well understood and well answered. So my second question is, you talk a little bit about this. First question's answer is exports opportunity. My question is larger, sir. Because of this China-related issue, globally we are now automotive axle is proven in terms of quality since long, and we are now introducing new products. We are improving a lot in terms of our capability of cost, in terms of cost to offer to our customers and best quality products also. So how is this larger opportunity? Can we become a non-auto related new products, maybe defense or maybe not non-road, off-road job, which you are saying, those can become a sizable chunk of the revenue or maybe next 5-10 years? That is the focus area of new products, new market, exports and all. If you can qualitatively talk more about these efforts we are taking.
Yeah, one thing I can tell you that we are not looking at diversifying outside of the commercial vehicle space.
Okay.
And that's not our focus at this point of time. We want to focus within the commercial vehicle space. What is going to happen in the future is, of course, we will work with the OEMs to see that what need to be offered in the going forward level. In that process, the electrification is what the one big disruption we will see in the coming years. And I'm happy to say, I've been talking about electrification. We are very well positioned in terms of electrification. Whether the electrification vehicles will be supplied by the existing OEMs, or there are at least 20-25 new people wants to make commercial vehicles in India, and whether them, we are very well positioned with all of them. Whether they want to use our conventional axle for a remote mount application, or if they want to use a e-axle, we are very well positioned, and we will smoothly transition whenever the transition happens, whether that electrification will be 20%, 30%, 50%, 100% over next 5, 7, 10, 15 years. We are very well positioned to go through the transition and which will be smooth for us.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And do you see sorry. If you can cover in terms of outsourcing and export.
Sorry to intercept, Mr. Sunil Kothari. Can you please come back in the queue, sir?
Sure.
Thank you. Our next question comes from the line of Mr. Viraj Kacharia. Please go ahead, sir.
Yeah, hi. Thanks for the opportunity and congratulations for a good set of numbers. First is, I kind of missed, you said something on the outlook in terms of what we expect for the CV space in Q4 and FY22. And second is, in terms of new products which you said is still in a drawing board. So will this largely be in the CV related space, or are we kind of looking at other market segments as well? And third is, just to do on the new product as well, are these kind of developed and kind of, designed and developed in-house, or we are kind of leveraging the kind of technology or support from Meritor for these new products? Thank you.
Easy question first. We will not diversify outside of commercial vehicle space. Whatever we do, we will do within the commercial vehicle space, both which is truck and bus and light and medium and heavy. The second question, in terms of the future outlook, next fiscal year, our estimation in 7.5 ton and above at least 50% market growth. And we are already seeing that kind of a number happening in last quarter and also this quarter. And looking into what the order board the OEMs has and we have, which we are a little bit of struggling to deliver because of the steel and supply chain issues, and also what happened during the budget and overall economic growth, etc. At this point of time, that market is extremely volatile, and sometimes it's very optimistic, sometimes it's very pessimistic. But this time, our projection is next year it would be at least 50 to 60% growth.
Okay, and the new products which we are looking to, which are still in the drawing board for us, are these kind of, so is the thought process largely from the India entity and we kind of looking to develop and launch, or these are kind of driven from the support from the parent and then we kind of leveraging on that?
No, we are 100% leveraging the parent company. I will give you one small example. Meritor has bought a company called Transpower. They are into 100% electrification solution provider based out of San Francisco. So we own the company at this point of time, and they are into fully electrical solution providing company. And we are utilizing all those capabilities, and all the time any new product development activities, we will use Meritor's support and the capability, and we don't want to duplicate those things in automotive axle. So to answer simply, yes, we are going to use 100% leverage the existing capability globally we have.
Okay. Just last one more question if I can squeeze in. On the raw material inflation, so you talked about supply chain issues and shortage of steel itself. And if you look at the overall inventory in the channel for major CV players itself is quite thin, and they are also kind of struggling to meet the end demand. So are we getting is the RM cost pass-through inflation now relatively more smoother than what you've seen in the past cycles? Because, given the way the challenges is and, the demand itself is quite strong. So just trying to understand, what kind of pass-through we would have got by now, or how should one look at the contribution margins?
I think, if you're, I'm sure that you all know, already the steel prices are a little bit of softening. It went up through the roofs in last few months and few quarters. But now I think it is back and it is settling down. So our personal view is it will settle down as a normal steel inflation, which is going to happen. It is going to settle down.
But in terms of pass-through or price increase, have we got anything from the OEs, or will that be good enough to cover the inflation we have seen so far in Q3?
No, I think one good news for us is our all commodity cost, which is mainly the steel in our case, is all we have an agreement on a back-to-back pass-through with the customers. There will be some lags because of which we will have some issues, but on a absolute number basis, it is covered.
Okay, fine. Thank you very much and good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kacharia. The next question is from the line of Mr. Pratik Podar from Nippon India Mutual Fund. Please go ahead, sir.
Yeah, hi. Just wanted to check, when we look at, this quarter MHCV industry growth, ex-buses, right? The growth has been very healthy. In fact, like HCV has grown on a YOY basis by 66%, ILCV has grown by 24%. So the question is, have we seen, because my understanding would be in buses we would have very low share. Have we really seen an increase in content or this quarter, or it's mostly driven by this mix change only?
Content-wise, not much. Maybe a little bit of BS6, content is little higher, and the upgradation of products has happened. What I mean by upgradation of product is, say for example, before if the OEMs were using, size as 50, with the BS6 coming in, the size of 50 they're using as size 60. Which means that, there is higher version axles they are using. Obviously, higher version axles are expensive, costlier than the lower version. So that way we are getting benefited. That's one benefit we are seeing. And you are talking about buses. I think bus is still, we're not seeing a, historical level in buses yet because of the, schools are not opened, in the IT companies are not open. So nobody's buying buses.
That is exactly my question, sir. That the growth which we saw, or say when you say that you will outperform or we will outperform industry by 15%, is it because our share in buses is much lower versus trucks, and this year buses have seen a abnormally high decline in terms of number of volumes sold because of Corona, which will not be there next year. So just trying to get to that.
No, I think our bus penetration is also at a decent level compared to truck. We don't doubt if there is a mixed change between bus and truck.
Got it. So, sir, then these pointers, as you highlighted in terms of exports, increased share of business, plus higher side of business in the axles and brakes, that is the main driver for outperformance over the industry, right? That is the way to sum this up.
Correct.
Okay. Sir, second question is, when I look at your revenue growth this quarter, it is up 64% as highlighted in your presentation, but the operating leverage benefits have not played out in terms of EBITDA margins. So EBITDA margins are at, say, roughly 9.9-10% versus last year same time. Any specific reason for this?
Ranga, you want to answer that?
Yeah. See, your observation is right. There are two factors, by and large, I would like to highlight here. One is about the commodity, the price increase, what we have accommodated in our system, that is creating a kind of a base impact in terms of the percentage per se. So that is, and secondly is about, if you see the last year, the same quarter, we had some, provisions which we carried in the books, which we are not, no more required. We've taken the benefit in the last year, which is the last year's results. So these two exceptions is what it shows in terms of the percentage. It's probably at par with the last year. It's not commensurating with your revenue growth. But if we remove these two exceptions, I think this quarter we really outperformed. You can really see the leverage of fixed costs as well as the conversion costs and material cost improvements really yielding to the EBITDA level.
Got it. And lastly, just wanted to check, is it fair to say that next quarter you would pass on the inflation increase which we saw this quarter to the OEMs, and hence the benefits which we couldn't see this quarter will get reflected in the next quarter?
No, see, as a growth, if the market is going to grow and we're going to grow, definitely you'll see much better EBITDA in the coming quarters. That's for sure. So that's why I think that the commodity increase, we are seeing it in two stages. Stage one, we accommodated in the system. So as a matter of fact, when we accommodated, it will create a base. The absolute values we have outgrown really. If you really see the absolute values, EBITDA we've grown by 64% compared to last year. So in terms of percentage, it is giving a base impact. It's a kind of an illusionary factor because of the 0.6 to 0.7% is the illusionary factor it gives us there. That's what I'm trying to explain. And the next quarter, when it goes, probably, as far as the commodity increase is going to continue next quarter also, probably we might have some base impact. But definitely the revenue growth should be able to support us to sustain or show a better percentage in terms of EBITDA. But you also need to judge that benefit is just flowing to absolute values. You see the absolute values will definitely commensurate with the revenue growth.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Podar. The next question is from the line of Pritesh Chadha. Please go ahead, sir.
Yes, sir. I have two questions. One, if you could help us on a 3-year basis. I was just actually looking that we didn't have exports, as a revenue. So on a 3-year basis, whatever orders or whatever plan of action that we have put in, what should the export number be, if you could help us, because that would be a growth over and above the CV growth in India. And the new products that we are introducing, what should that add as revenues over the next 3 years?
Yeah, again, we don't give the segment-wise breakup of our revenue now.
I'm actually seeking a outlook because these revenues never existed. When I was looking at 20, there was zero exports. So it's a number which will build up over next 3 years based on the inquiries or orders that you have in hand.
No, I don't think anyway, I don't think the export was zero ever. I think, the proportionate will keep on changing, so whether export grows more in terms of the percentage-wise, domestic and export will grow in a different, it all depending upon the, the different regional markets, etc. I think our focus, as I always keep telling it, the export is one very key segment for us. We want to continue to grow and outperform in export. That, of course, is not related directly to the Indian market, but in our terms, how much year over year we grow export. That's one of the metrics we follow. And then the new other one is, as I said, that industrial, which is off-highway and military vertical, we want to grow. And, that is the second important vertical we want to grow in the future. And then how do we bring new products like suspension and other things we spoke about? We are evaluating a lot of other products to see that to come into the market. I think our approach is, multifold to see where the growth is going to come from for the next 5 years.
Okay, I'll ask the question another way. Is it going to be materially large over the next 2-3 years?
No, it is not going to be significantly large. The only thing I can tell you is, compared to the market, we probably overall, as a business, I'm saying, compared to the market, we continue to probably out compared to the market.
Second question is, when I was looking at your P&L structure, I see a lot of variable costs. So, we have a 30% gross margin, but if I try to look at the contribution margin, it will be closer to about 20-22%. Is it fair to assume that scale bringing in operating leverage may not be a significant number, as one of the participants was highlighting why we are not 15-20% margin? The structure of your costing suggests that the operating leverage benefit is there, but it is not a significant number.
Ranga, you want to take the question?
No, I think our opinion is definitely volumes are definitely providing a good amount of leverage. There are variable and fixed costs. Probably in the study results, you may not be able to significantly see the difference, but definitely what is variable, of course, it goes with the volumes. That is also a lot of improvements that Timmy mentioned earlier. A lot of strategic initiatives working on it. That is also yielding results. Second is about on the fixed cost side, definitely good amount of leverage. We are seeing it here. So the first quarter has been, we are just recovered from the COVID impact. So hopefully you'll see the coming day, the leverage will be coming in the results.
So. Can you share the fixed cost, absolute fixed cost in the business?
Sorry? No, we don't share that breakdown like that, but definitely as management perspective, you can say that leverage is there in the system. Okay. We have to see this exception, which I earlier also highlighted the exceptions, because one is the material cost, the commodity price increase is creating a kind of an impact in terms of percentage, and also that one-time benefit last year we had. So probably if you see that quarter on quarter, the leverage is coming in, you can able to map that. So generally we don't give the breakdown.
Lastly, sir, this employee 2,000 number and the operating utilization of 50%, does this also go hand in hand, or at 2,000 number workforce you can still operate at 100%?
Come again, I'm not able to follow you.
We said that the workforce that we have is about 2,000 and the capacity utilization that we saw in the last quarter gone by was 50%. So when you scale up from 50 to 100% capacity utilization, the employee cost also moves linearly or doesn't move linearly, and the employee count moves linearly or will not move?
Yeah, portion definitely, the fixed element of the employee cost definitely will yield a benefit in the leverage benefit will definitely come.
Okay, but there are two portions in the employee cost. There are two portions. One is the employees we are purely variable, like the direct employees are responsible for the day-to-day production, etc. Then, of course, all the management people, etc., they are all fixed. So we will get a bit in the fixed employee cost, and the variable cost will continue to be a variable.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chadha. The next question is from the line of Mr. Sunil Kothari from Unique Investments. Please go ahead, sir.
Thanks, sir, for again giving opportunity. My question is to Mr. Thoreya. Sir, we had got one chance to exports and outsourcing opportunity from Thailand, Volvo. So, would you like to talk more about this type of opportunity we've newly got, maybe during this year or last year? Any new development which is happening for supplying to global this type of customer? If you can talk a little bit more.
I think that is one of, as I always say, that is one of the focus areas to see that if we can supply directly to the OEMs, mainly from the European perspective. But unfortunately, there are a lot of inquiries we were working on, but the COVID, took everything into the back seat. Now the OEMs everybody are operating at very low capacity utilization. So, and they want to, and also we are not able to meet people, not travel. I think that's really impacted some of these new opportunities and delayed it by quite some time. So I think once the things become little more normal when we are able to travel, etc., I think that will start opening up. So the answer, yes, the focus is there, but it all took a little bit of backseat because of the pandemic. But in the going forward, we will continue to focus on those.
Great, sir. And sir, my last question is related to slide number 6, which talks about production rate on increasing trend. That chart talks about increasing production by 25% over quarter 3. We are forecasting higher production by 25% compared to quarter 3. So why we are talking about just 10% revenue growth? If you can little bit explain.
1 second.
Come again, sir?
Slide number 6. Production rate on increasing trend. That's the one chart which talks about increasing production 25% compared to quarter 3 for quarter 4. That is a forecast. And we are talking about quarter 3 revenue will grow by, quarter 4 revenue expected to grow by just around 10%. So why this difference? I'm not able to understand.
No, 10% where you are saying, sir? I'm not able to see. So really see it.
The right side, if you look at right side revenue key highlight, the second pointer says quarter 4 revenue expected to grow by around 10%.
See, one point I'd like to say is production rate, what we have increased 25% is based on our normal production rate, number of axles we produce per day, number of brakes we produce per day, etc. So in general, we are likely to see an increase of 20-25% in terms of production rate, what we'll be doing in most number of days. But overall, as a consolidated basis revenue, if you look at it, our conservative figure is 10%. I think you may not be able to exactly correlate. We are generally trying to indicate the kind of increase in capacity or increase in output we are making in our lines.
Correct. But hopefully, whatever production you are increasing,
your observation is right, Sunilji. Your observation is right. I think that's a little bit of error there. Sorry for that mistake. I think Q4 we should grow much.
Sorry, Jamia. Just to the mission strategy, 25 strategy slide, if you could see, we also indicated what we are projecting for this year concerned. Okay. So that's probably more in line with what we have talked about this production rate increase. So more or less that correlates the same number. So probably It's a typo error. Sorry for that. So we'll come.
No, fine. Not at all problem. You people are doing really great job, and thanks a lot. Again, congratulations all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kothari. The next question is from the line of Mr. Shashank Kanodia from ICICI Securities. Please go ahead, sir.
Yeah, good afternoon, sir, and congratulations for a good set of numbers. Sir, I have two broader questions. Sir, firstly, on your Mission 25 focus, can you put some tangible numbers to it in terms of, you mentioned directionally that you want to grow revenues, enhance profitability and new business wins. But let's say if you talk about revenues, so by Mission 25, do you expect it to be 1.5x of our last peak, or 15 to 20% margin trajectory, or any tangible numbers to it, sir?
Yeah, that's what I've been telling. We don't want to project and give that to the street. Of course, we have internally we have our numbers, what we need to grow, but we are not projecting that outside. Again, for various reasons, the competition reason. It's not about investors. I would love to give that to the investor, but we don't want such information go to our competition.
Okay. So, sir, in that journey, can we attain our past peak of revenues in FY23 itself, let's say of 1950 odd crores that we did?
Sorry, come again?
So, in this journey towards your Mission 25, so can we attain a figure of 2,000 odd crores of last peak revenue in FY23 itself?
I don't know whether 23 or when. It's all depending upon how the market will come back, but definitely we will cross that for sure.
Okay. And so lastly, so on the electrification side, our understanding was ours basically access the transmission product under electrification will not undergo any meaningful change. So is there any difference in this view? I mean, can you please explain how does our scheme of things change in electrification?
Sorry, I couldn't understand. Can you please repeat?
Yeah, sir. The axles that we manufacture are largely for transmission, right? So these are not related to powertrain per se, right? So we just wanted to understand under electrification, how does the scheme of things change for us? So we're going to manufacture the same axles, or does that vehicle require a different axle?
It is both. It's actually axle. If you see, that's the last point of power transmission. If you see a vehicle, we have engine, then you have transmission, then we have the propeller shaft, and then it goes to the axle. And from the axle, it is directly driven to the wheel. So, there are two types of electrification I told in many meetings. One is the remote mount option, which means that there will be a propeller shaft, there will be an existing axle, they will just mount a motor instead of engine and gearbox. In that case, it is more or less the axle is similar. The other is we call e-axle, which the motor is mounted onto the axle. In both the cases, we are prominently present.
Okay. Thank you. And Mr. One last thing, you also planned to pour into LCV sometime back, a couple of calls before. So any update on that front as well?
Yeah, well, again, we are working on that. If you see that we have gone one level below for a 7.5 ton range. So we are working on that product platform. We are there and we are working and we are expanding. Whether to go below that, still we are contemplating. We don't know at this point of time.
Right. Is there any capex plans that you foresee for next 2-3 years?
Sorry to interrupt your line, Mr. Shashank.
I'll come back.
Can you please come back in the queue? Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. The next question is from the line of Mr. Pankaj Bobre from Axis Securities. Please go ahead, sir.
Thanks for taking my question, sir. You talked about the defense opportunity. So just wanted to understand how big is the defense opportunity and where are the positions? And also I would like to know if there are, in continuation of last person who had asked the question, what is the capex for 21-22?
Okay. On the defense side, if what we play is where there is a multi-axle vehicle requirement for the defense application. These vehicles have been provided by various OEMs, whether it is Tata Motors, Ashok Leyland, Mahindra, all those people. So we are working mainly with Ashok Leyland on that. And Tata, of course, they make their own axle to some extent. So whenever and we are providing our prototypes to Ashok Leyland and other OEMs, and it's going through various validation. And they are competing with each other. Whenever the OEM wins a product or a business in which our axles are fitted, it will come to us. The opportunity, if you see in the longer perspective, maybe next 10-year horizon, it is huge because the government is talking two things. Number one, replacing all the old technology with the new technology vehicles. That's mainly on the modernization of vehicles. Second thing is upgradation of the existing into the next. Say they will come up with a independent suspension system, completely armored vehicle. If you really see today, the military uses our normal trucks and buses for military application, which is not what the developed countries does. In developed countries, they develop a very, very specific military application vehicles. So I think that's where the difference is, and India is also moving towards that. And on the capex, we have capacity-wise, we don't have a problem at this point of time. As I mentioned, we are still operating at around 50-60% level. So that means pure capacity enhancement perspective, we don't need capital. Of course, we need capital for sustenance as well as the new product development and introduction. So it is not going to be significant.
Okay, thanks. You talked about Tata Motors. So just wanted to understand how well are we able to break into them, and if not, what is the roadmap ahead?
Not yet, but we are continuous to talk to them and see if we can provide a value to them from switching over from their axle to our axle. So we are continuous to work with that.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Bobre. The next question is from the line of Mr. Pratik Podar from Nippon India Mutual Fund. Please go ahead.
Sorry, hi. Sir, just wanted to follow up on two things. One is, if I look at slide number 8, and when I look at MHCV production for FY21, which you have indicated, and your revenue growth, that is, your absolute revenue of around 800 crores, that is substantially higher even when compared to year 2013-14, when MHCV production was actually 225,000. So this incremental delta is all because of new products coming in the last 3-4 years, and hence is it safe to say that once industry reaches its new peak, which is similar to FY19 levels, our revenue will be substantially higher than what we have achieved in the previous past? And sir, second question, if I may ask, in slide 7, you have said significant savings expected through 2022 time frame. If you can highlight what kind of savings directionally are we seeing, that would be really appreciated, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, one is you're right. If the industry achieves the peak volume of 476, which is 18-19, and where we did approximately 2,000 crores, we will be much, much more than that for sure. That is one thing. You can see the trend, right? What exactly you can see the trend, and that trend is going to continue. In terms of, I think I explained you earlier, in terms of the cost reduction activities we are doing across all areas, whether it is engineering cost reduction, whether it is purchasing, sourcing, operations. Some are, as I mentioned earlier, we are bound to pass on to the customer because we also want our customer to get the benefit of what the work we are doing. So that depends upon year to year. We take a call depending upon what we need to pass on and what we need to retain.
Okay, sir, got it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Podar. The next question is from the line of Mr. Rahul Jain from Credence Wealth. Please go ahead, sir.
Thanks for the opportunity and congratulations, Mr. Timaya, for the award which you got, and wishing you many more such awards going ahead. Sir, my first question was with regards to Tata Motors penetration. I'm not asking for a number, but we have been working with Tata Motors for last 3-4 years. Directionally, is the penetration gradually increasing with Tata Motors?
No, it is actually up and down. We launch a new product, we do business with them, then somehow they insource it and it goes down, and then again come back with a new product. So it's actually up and down. It is not increasing. That's the reason, we are taking some stands. I can't obviously tell now, but we are working with them to see that how to protect that whatever we launch with them.
Sure. But as the cycle picks up, is there a good amount of confidence that the penetration can go up higher in next 3 years too? Is there?
I can say yes.
Sure, that is helpful. Secondly, sir, a couple of quarters back in one of your con calls, you had mentioned that we had done roughly around 12% EBITDA margin when we had worked at the peak capacity, that is in March 19. And you had mentioned because of the various cost initiatives which we have been working upon in last 2 years, and we continue to work upon them, even at 20% lower top line compared to March 19, you will be able to attain the similar margin. So do we stick to that stance?
Come again. What is the number you are saying?
You said couple of quarters back, you had mentioned in one of your calls with regards to cost initiatives which you were taking, you mentioned that even with a 15-20% lower top line, you will be able to maintain those margins of the peak margins of around 12%, achieved at your peak top line of about 1,900 crores. Which basically means at about 15% lower top line of 1,900 crores, you should be in the region of around 12% margin. That is what you had stated because of the cost initiatives which you have taken.
As of now, if you ask me, yes, I am just holding on to that statement.
Sure. So that means that top line which can be higher, as you just mentioned in previous answers, our EBITDA margin should be higher than our peak margins attained in March 19.
I will leave it to you to assume.
Sure. So last
Sorry to interrupt you, Mr. Jain. Please come back in the queue, sir.
Sure.
Yes. The next question is from the line of Mr. Anubhav Rawat. Please go ahead, and he's from Monarch.
Yeah. Hi, good afternoon, sir. Sir, some very basic questions from my side. Sir, will you be able to give, our revenue share and wallet share with our top 5 clients?
What?
Sir, will you be able to disclose our top 5 clients and what wallet share they have with us?
No, we don't disclose that.
Okay. And sir, my second question is, sir, on an average, how many of our products in number terms would be fitted in a truck or a bus?
In terms of volume, you are saying?
Yes, in units. On an average in a truck, how many of our products go, like brakes and axles?
In one truck, if you see, there is one axle and number of brakes depending upon how many axle the vehicle has.
Okay.
Some are multi-axle vehicles. If it is a 10 by 2 truck, then it will have 10 brakes.
All right.
And one live axle. If it is an 8 by 2 truck, it will have one live axle and 8 brakes.
Okay, perfect. Understood, sir. Fine. Thank you. Thanks for answering. All the best.
Thank you, Mr. Rawat. The next question is from Mr. Vikramjit, an individual investor. Please go ahead.
22 out of the total sales which we will do, any number it could be, what would be the share of OEM and what would be the share of replacement?
So you are talking about in our overall revenue, what is the replacement share and what is the OEM share?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Again, we don't give a split of, our business verticals. But again, we do a lot of replacement market as well. We have, of course, the Meritor sells it in the market, but all the product goes from automotive axles. So we are a decent player, I can say that, in the marketplace for replacement market as well.
It should be more than 30%, sir?
No, we don't give that split.
Sir, can we give the split in axles and brakes?
No, extremely sorry, we don't do that as well. We don't give segment-wise, customer-wise, or product-wise split.
I appreciate your position, sir. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Vikramjit. I would now like to hand over the call to management team for closing comments.
Yeah, maybe, I think thank you very much. It's an exciting session. Actually, I really enjoy by myself to take and answer these questions. It's a lot of knowledge and learning for us also, and we take a lot of notes in terms of what we need to do from the investor perspective. Thank you very much. It's always enlightening to talk to all of you.
Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes your conference for today. We thank you for your participation and for using iJunction conference service. You may please disconnect your line now.
Thank you.